Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the This Is Me podcast. I'm Karen.
And I'm Ellie, and today we have Lisa joining us. Lisa is a grown-up military child that now works for a not-for-profit supporting members of the armed forces community with a passion to make changes that will have a lasting impact. So, Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us and for being willing to share your story with us. Why don't you start by telling us a bit about you, who you are, and how you've got to where you are today?
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It's a varied story. There's going to be lots of segues, I am sure. So I'll start with, I guess, from the intro of being a grown-up military child.
Yeah.
And actually, it's a term that I've only recently started to reclaim, thanks to hearing some amazing speakers at different conferences that I've been to. So basically, I come from a tri-service family. So my mum was in the Navy very briefly. My dad was in the Royal Air Force. My granddad was in the British Army. I have an aunt that was in the Navy as well, and various other connections across the extended family as well. So I was actually born in Germany when my dad was based over there. And that's just not something that is normal for most people. And I always remember as a kid that when I used to tell people at school, because by this point my parents had got divorced when I was like 4 or 5. My dad had come out the Air Force and he'd actually gone into the prison service then. So I was in school and kind of saying that I was born in Germany, and everybody was like it's a classic kind of schoolyard type bullying of like, oh, well, you're a Nazi then, and like loads of like really like silly things. So I just stopped telling people. So this whole part of my life and who I was and who my family are, I just kind of kept quiet about it. And it was at a conference that I was at last year, and there was a researcher who was presenting about some interviews that she'd done with grown-up military children. It's the first time I'd heard that term, and I was like, oh wow, there's actually loads of people out there that have had a similar experience, and kind of the way they're talking is very similar to me, because it is a large part of who I am. I wanted to join the military at one point, and for various different reasons, I didn't in the end. But it's always been a very big part of my life. And my dad, as a veteran, and I'm his carer now. So it's, that's how I connect to this community. And again, I didn't even realise that there was an armed forces community, because I'd kind of grown up and been disconnected from this. So you just don't realise that there are other people that have had similar life experiences and actually understand what you are going through and what you will talk about. And so now I'm quite proud to try and like reclaim that as a title. So yeah, I'm a grown-up military child.
What does that mean to you then? That's so interesting. Like when the researcher was talking, what was it that you thought, oh my goodness, that's me? And like, what does it mean to you now when you say I'm a grown-up military? I think it's really funny. A grown-up military child is like an oxymoron, isn't it? But it'd be really lovely if you wouldn't mind sharing.
It is, because I think, especially working in the sector now, so I've been in the armed forces sector for 4 years, just over 4 years now. And whenever we talk about families and service children, it's generally always referring to actual children. So, under 18s, and normally those that their parents are currently serving. But what about the rest of us? And so we don't really have a term. And the researcher's done a fantastic piece where she'd actually gone and interviewed and spoken to these grown-up service children about their lives, and it can really vary. So whilst I was born in Germany, I was born in a British military hospital. I was about 2 or 3 years old when we came back from Germany. So I don't speak German, unfortunately. I wish I kind of like absorbed that while I was there.
Yeah, too soon they took you home.
Yeah, and then I think that was about four or five when my dad left the Air Force. So some people, they've kind of gone through their entire school journeys, and they could be quite different. So they might have gone to different schools, or they've moved around to different countries. But whilst I haven't gone through that piece myself, we are a family that have moved a lot. And that's part of the experience that when I then hear from other grown-up military children, and that's something you can connect on, because I always joke about this, that there's still things I've got in bags and boxes, because I'm used to every couple of years just moving around.
Going somewhere.
And that's something that just becomes the norm. But it's norm for me, but it's not for everybody else. So my experience kind of growing up is I went to the same junior school and then senior school, but I'd spend all of my holiday time with my dad, and my dad at the time, he was in the prison service by then, and the prison service, you just swap in one uniform for another, and the prisons that he would be working in tend to be the ones that would be like outside, kind of like in the countryside a bit, so all of the housing around the prisons was just for the prison officers, and kind of their families. So he used to move around quite frequently, and I've kind of lived in a lot of different places, and I am very used to having to kind of pick up and try and make new friends somewhere else. And I think when I talk to other people, I don't have like friends that I've had since I was a kid. And I think for most people, that's quite like a formative part of their lives, there's someone that they've known since they were like 3 or 4 years old. Whereas my kind of like friendships and connections have been like much kind of more fleeting, but at the same time, especially where I am now, I've had some amazing friendships that have lasted, across like oceans. Like I have friends across the world now, and I think that's something that's really kind of come from the family that I was born into, and those experiences that you get to have, and how it shapes you as well.
Thanks for that. It's a really fascinating. I'd never heard the term, and it's like, I think it's really interesting. We'll probably come on to this later on about how even that title, there's different experiences within that. And in your job now, that must be so important that you really get to understand the experience that means to each individual. And then you can also share your packing tips with Eleanor, who's just moved house, or unpacking tips.
Keep everything packed up. It tends to be.
No, because I think it must be quite interesting, because, and there's like, here's me fully projecting, right? And I've got no idea about military life in any capacity whatsoever. But I can imagine that you were too military for the kids that were born and raised in the town that you went to school from. But then if you were to meet someone else who has, because did you say that your dad had left by the time you were 5? But then that's probably not military enough for the military kids. But I don't think that necessarily matters when your whole family has had that career. They could have left before you were born. You were still gonna, your life was still very heavily going to be influenced by the military structure, I guess, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely spot on, because there can sometimes be a bit of, I don't know, just like top trump cards of like, well, who's like been in longer, or who's gone to different schools, or and we see it amongst the kind of the veterans that we work with as well, kind of like comparing, well, which tours did you do, and did you see combat or not? And I personally, I just don't think that is something that should be as focused on as it is, because actually I think what binds people together, I think you've got to be a certain type of person to want to join the military, and also, by the way, families don't get a choice in that. We didn't select to do that, so it's kind of like we're opted in, whether we're born into it, or that they've joined after we've become part of their lives, so we just kind of have to crack on with it, and you can kind of really feel that sometimes you're not quite part of anything because of that. So it's like, where do you really fit? And that's really difficult to navigate, because it's like, how do you kind of form your identity around that? And it becomes very changing because of it. Absolutely.
How did that influence? So I know we're going to talk onto your varied career in a moment, but how did that influence your choices of career and choices of where how did it manifest itself? Really, is what I was trying to ask very badly. So it's
always been something that's, I suppose, been really aspirational, because I I think I can come to this later, but you can only be what you can see sometimes. So my family has always been military, civil service. So my mom ended up she was in the police, so she was civil service in the police. Like I said, my dad came out and went into the prison service. My granddad had come out and gone into the prison service, and these were people that I looked up to as I'm kind of growing up. And the jobs I think are really important and also sounded really interesting. So when I was thinking about what was it I want to do, so I joined Air Cadets when I was 13, and that was really a great environment because, again, this is now a space where not every cadet has had a parent or connection that's been in the military, but there is certainly an understanding of that. So you can feel a little bit freer to talk about this is something you're interested in, and the opportunities that I got, especially with Air Cadets. I also think that we have the best of kind of all worlds because we got the opportunity. I've been flying, and I got to fly a plane myself. We used to go and play a lot of sport. I've done shooting competitions. There's always opportunities to go traveling. So I've only ever kind of traveled in the UK, but there are some of the cadets that go to Australia or go to Canada because it's this huge network. So I joined the cadets, and this was something I wanted to follow in those footsteps. So I really wanted to go into the military, and I don't even know necessarily why I picked on this, but I think I enjoyed languages. So I also wanted to look at going into intelligence. And I remember speaking to a family friend who was in Army intelligence at the time. And they said, basically, Persian's always going to be needed because I'm thinking about geopolitics and what's happening in the world. So I started to kind of look around based on that, and there are very few universities that teach Persian.
I was going to say.
And honestly, there's literally about 3 or 4.
I'm surprised you found any.
So it's really rare. And University of Manchester is one of the few. And I remember going along to the open day, and I just fell in love with the place. There's something about Manchester. It's where I still live now, so I've kind of definitely fallen for the place. And my department, I remember going for the interview with one of the professors there, and obviously asking, why do you want to do this course? Obviously, I was looking at Middle Eastern languages, and explained, I'm really interested, love to go into military intelligence. And he was like, well, if that didn't work out, what would you do? And I was like, probably frontline journalism. And he just laughs and he goes, have you got a death wish? I never really thought about it like that, because it was just normal for me to kind of be like, oh no, this is what I want to do. And then this was I suppose, the pathway I was working out. But I'm the only person in my family to go to university, which is something I'm hugely proud of, because it's a difficult journey to kind of get to that point. I did a BTEC in public services, which is very vocational based. And I didn't realise until you kind of get to the end of the course that actually BTECs aren't awarded as many UCAS points as A levels are. So that I just think is absolutely ludicrous, because I was in 5 days a week. I was in 9 to 5. I did cadets as part of my qualification.
The BTEC
we did so much coursework.
Are so badly I'm trying to think of a polite word here. Respected is what I'm trying to say.
There's not enough respect for them whatsoever. No. And because not everybody kind of wants to be pushed down that real academic route, looking at A levels. And my old school also did the international baccalaureate, which I think is still going. And that's that's super intensive as well. But vocational courses in the BTECs, I think, are such a great option for people to get kind of practical, hands-on skills. And then, but if somebody still wants to go and pursue an academic career through university, the fact that it's not awarded as many points, even though I got distinction merit, so it's equivalent to AAB, but by UCAS points it was BBC, and that can be a big difference with some universities' grades. So that was kind of it definitely shaped me in what I wanted to go and do. And then I it didn't end up kind of going into the military. If I'm going to be really frank and honest, it's because I was massively overweight at the time. And I'd gone through what I now know. So I have a hormonal imbalance. So I have polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Me too.
There we go. That is not enough.
I've never heard that celebrated before.
It's because I'm like, it's because I finally got the diagnosis, is what it was. So get up. There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
sorry, Lisa. Go on.
No, absolutely. Congrats, because and I think it's not spoken about enough at all.
Yeah.
And I just wish that I knew a bit sooner to that I could. There was something kind of going on inside of me, because there's so much kind of like shame attached to, like, if you are overweight and that clearly it's your fault because you're overeating or you're not active enough, when actually there's way more to it than that. So when I was at university, which I had like amazing opportunities. So I ended up doing Persian and Hebrew languages.
Wow.
So I did the two of them. I got to spend my year abroad in Israel, which difficult topic at the minute, but
was right
I will
for
say
you.
that was, at the time, it was probably one of the best experiences I've ever. It still is now. At 20, when I went out there, living alone in a completely different country.
That's really
and
brave, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
having the opportunity to really immerse yourself in another culture and language was fantastic. And then when I came back from Israel, I got really involved into student media. So that kind of became where I suppose pivoted. I always had an interest in like writing and potentially journalism. And then I suppose had a bit of a sharp shock of, it's really difficult to get into those industries. So I had a student radio show, which I loved, that we kind of got to play around in like a legit studio, go and interview bands and, put together the shows that we were putting on. And then I was also writing for the student paper. But yeah, when you then try and look at, well, actually, how can you progress once you graduate? Well, I can't afford to go and live in London for free and do those unpaid internships. So, I ended up just looking for a job in marketing, and probably one of the first ones I saw.
And you decided then that the military, or something had decided then that the military wasn't an option. So you knew that by the end of your university career.
Yeah, I knew that I wasn't, because I had to lose a lot of weight to kind of be fit enough to try and go for the military. Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose also I maybe thought about maybe something different. I'd got really into running events. So through doing the student radio show, I started putting on like small gigs, and I was like really interested in like events management, and that's when you start to realize that there are just so many other jobs out there. That it was not something I'd ever heard of or thought of a job when I was younger, because my parents were in uniform, so that's what I was looking to go and do. So, and then the events industry as well. So it's like, right, well, I'd love to go and work on a radio station, but that is basically impossible. Or it's very difficult. Obviously it happens for a lot of people. And same with journalism. Like it's you don't all get to go and write for a big paper. There's a lot of hard work to get where you are, and like I said, a lot of unpaid internships that I couldn't afford. So was living independently since before I went to university. And so then I was really enjoying all the events that I was running, and I started volunteering. So there used to be something called Ox Jam, which was like the music festival fundraising for Oxfam. And I was like, great, I can get some events management experience. And whilst I'm volunteering, we did festivals. I did it for like 3-4 years. And you had no budget, so you had to kind of like beg, borrow, steal, get venues for free, get the bands to play for free, all the kit and everything, raise some money alongside, which is really exciting. And then I ran another series of events, also volunteering, on top of full-time job as well, which was called So Far Sounds, which is, I think it's not died out a little bit more, but it was a lot bigger, say, before COVID. I think COVID has obviously impacted a lot of stuff. But the whole concept behind So Far Sounds is it's kind kind of like secret gigs. So we would put gigs on literally in people's living rooms. I mean, very large living rooms, because we'd have like
Yeah, yeah.
40, 50 people attending. And the whole point was that you, as an attendee, you didn't know who was going to be playing until you got there. You didn't know where it was until the day before. It was it's all like unplugged, and the big benefit was, I think we've all been to shows where people are talking on their phones, or they're talking to their mates, or they're not really paying attention. And this was really about, no, you're going to sit and you're going to listen to these artists, because they deserve your attention. And we would curate the kind of the set list and who was playing. And so my biggest like achievement was we had Hosier play.
Did you?
And that was the summer that Take Me to Church went massive. And
my God.
Wow.
literally was in a flat not far from where I live now. It was my friend's flat, and like just got to sit at his feet, like just watch. He's incredible.
He's
also
he's unbelievable.
One of the nicest humans you could possibly ever meet as well.
Don't say
and
that
one of the
to
tallest.
me.
He's like 6'6". He's massive.
I just want to get married to him. Okay, that's all I want.
Don't blame me. Don't blame me. He is incredible. So that is just kind of all these different experiences. But again, it's still difficult to get into a job that's going to pay you to live.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You can do it as like, I suppose if you had other income kind of coming in, but like, so when you're living independently, it's like, well, I've got to pay the bills, and it's not going to get there. So at that time I started working for a event ticketing startup company. So I think I was one of 3 when I joined the company, and it had gone up to like 10 people when I left. And that was my first proper job, kind of after graduating.
First proper job in a setup company is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Like, for your frame of reference for how a business runs.
Yes.
Wow.
And somehow I've only ever worked in kind of small startup type businesses since.
You are, yeah?
I guess so. I mean, sometimes I think back and I go, oh, it'd be nice to just be in it, because I've got friends obviously work for larger companies, and the concept of having, departments that do things rather than, oh, it's just me.
Oh, those could be the days.
Oh, I
Can
do.
I
I dream about
before we
it.
go into what you did next? When you told your parents that this was going to be your career, how did that go down? Was that accepted, or was it, it wasn't like, oh, you're not doing what we thought you would do?
No, I've always been very supportive, and
that's amazing.
And yeah, there was no push whatsoever to do anything, I suppose. I think they've only ever wanted for me to kind of go out and experience life.
That's really good, isn't it?
I think particularly my dad was always very keen to like go travel, go like whilst you are like younger and able, before you kind of you're tied down to do anything, go and do all of these things that you want to try and experience. So always been very, very supportive of that. My desire to kind of go into the military has always been, I suppose, just internal. It's not like anything that they've ever said. It's something I've aspired to, because I've respected what my family had done, and also thought, it was pretty cool. Again, you get paid to go travel the world. So
this is the theme coming out. Travel the world. Now, the reason I asked that is quite a lot of people you speak to, where whatever careers their parents have been in, like whether it's teachers or business people or whatever, sometimes that can become what those parents see as success for people, and it's so limiting, because you said it earlier, there are so many things out there, so many different jobs you can do that play to so many different talents, and that's why I was interested, really, not for anything to do with your parents, but to do with where your influence came from.
Yeah, there is just so much out there that you have no idea about, and I think it's absolutely wild that kids are being expected to lay out their careers without having any real idea as to what is out there. And neither do, if the teachers are helping them, like, they don't know what's out there either. Like, there are so many jobs, and like, especially as technology changes and, industries, kind of change, come and go, it's just constantly evolving. So I think it's always just, I've always been, I suppose, inspired and driven by an ambition that just to be ambitious, like and I value that. I value being interested in my work as well, and that's probably one of the other things is that we spend so much of our lives working that, and I know there's a kind of two schools of thought, that either you work to live and then you go and in your spare time and you enjoy what you're doing, but for me I'm kind of the live to work, because I'm spending my time working, so I want to enjoy what I'm doing, and I want to believe in that, and be curious and learn more, and kind of have those different experiences through work.
My absolute challenge back to the workplace, way too long, because I'm way much older than you two, is why does it have to be different? Why can't work be life? Why can't life be work? Do you know, like why do you people say to me, "Oh, when are you going to retire, Karen?" It's like, well, they class my working as if it's working, but it's not. So I think it's really interesting how we have to say work and living. Why can't you be lucky enough to have both?
But I think that's what it is. I think it is whether you are like Lisa has, like, you've made a decision that actually no, you are really going to actively look for something that you really enjoy. But I don't think that like, I think the other thing is that a lot of people don't get to make that choice, do they? So they are, I mean, I suppose you would hope that people are doing something that they were at least
they marginally
interested in. Yeah. You don't know, do you? But I think,
no. I think it's not for now, but I think maybe later. I think it's really interesting thinking about the area you work in now with veterans, where there's deemed professions that veterans, like you were saying about your dad, like your dad was in the forces, then it was the police, and my background is retail and a lot of things like logistics and security, and a lot of the time people, I don't know why I'm doing this, there's no need to do that, sorry. I'm going to sit on my hands, but there's like allocated professions if you've been in the military, and allocated professions if you've been, and I just think that is outrageous. But that's maybe for later. But I think that you can, to your point, Elle, do a job where you're playing to your strengths, you're playing to your motivator, that isn't going into logistics or security or something because you've been in the military. It's a weird old
I
thing.
think we're not really challenged to think about what do we enjoy, what are our skills, and how do they match what's important to us. So it's really hard to kind of have that conversation yourself, or try and navigate that for yourself. And sometimes, like I said, you could just be limited by the opportunities that you have, access to either different jobs or qualifications. And I think sometimes, whether that's purposefully kind of you're kept in that box, or we've made that box ourselves, and because we don't know how to get out of it, and it's absolutely privileged that I can say that I'm found those opportunities to find those jobs that really excite me, and I guess I said because I have been I suppose encouraged to push myself a little bit more, and that's what I would help anybody to do so. And when I have conversations with friends and kind of other people that you meet, is just trying to challenge some of the traditional thinking that we have.
That's amazing. So where did you go next then? Sorry, Elle, go on.
No, I wasn't going to say anything of any interest, so quickly ask that question again, because it was boring what I was going to say.
I'm sure it wasn't. I was just wondering where Lisa went to next.
So after working in the startup, I ended up working for a co-working space. So kind of being in a tech startup in Manchester, where it's quite a big scene for startups. I kind of learned about co-working as a concept, and that was on kind of the rise of co-working. I think we've kind of again, COVID has interrupted a lot of things. So I ended up going to a co-working space, and was really lucky at the time, because the company that I was working for, they just acquired their first property in Manchester. Their head office is in Nottingham, so they're looking for somebody to kind of come in, and it was in an old warehouse, so it was going to be refurbishing the space, and then I got to basically build the whole place from scratch.
Nice.
So kind of like working with the designer, and so then it's like, things like I'd love to do interior design.
Yeah.
So I got to have a little bit of play with that. And then having to put together, because it basically was like my little business, as the manager for it. So I oversaw the finalizing the construction. Whilst that was all still kind of being built, the company that I worked for, they had an office in Hammersmith, down in London, and they needed cover for a manager. So I was lucky that they were paying for me to kind of go stay down in London. So I'd work there for like the week, and then I'd come back up the weekend, because I've never really had a desire to live in London. I know a lot of people, that's like a thing they want to go and do, and this really actually cemented the idea of like, I don't want to live in London. It's just too much. It's too busy.
You've met your soulmate in Eleanor.
Yeah, no, except I moved, and I shouldn't have done it. It was never going to be for me, and I could have just visited my friends that lived down there.
But this is it. So I was, staying in London, and you have to make a choice, don't you, because of how big it is and where everything is. So the office is in Hammersmith, and I don't really like commuting. Don't like getting up too early. So I was like, right, well, I'm going to stay next to where the office is. But my best friend from uni, she lived over towards like Bounds Greenway, which is like the opposite end, literally the opposite end of the tube line.
Yeah.
And it's an hour one way.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So we made this like promise where we're like, right, I'm here for like 6 months, give or take. So let's make the effort. We'll go for dinner once a week. That's a 2-hour round trip.
Yeah,
just
you don't do it.
It's like, it's unbelievable. So, and I was like, that just really, because for me it was like, if I lived there, I'd have to try and find somewhere that wasn't too far from work, but that could always change because your job might change. Wasn't too far from your friends, but then again, people might change themselves.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, then, and actually, what can you afford, and what's in that area that you might want to do yourself, and that just seems impossible. And at that point the night tubes had maybe just started to come in, so it was like, right, you've got to be gone by 11 p.m, otherwise you're going to be on a night bus. It's going to take you 3 hours to get home.
Yeah,
so I was not a massive fan, much to probably everybody else's dismay, because I know some people, they love it. It's nice to visit. It is nice to visit, but that's about it.
That's enough.
Yeah, definitely. But the co-working space was really, really good fun. I met some amazing people, and we did some really fun stuff. Like the company that I worked for, they kind of described themselves as a venture builder. So they have a number of different like businesses that they've kind of like incubated. The biggest one is the credit score company, now that the name's gone completely from my head.
Can't remember any of them. Experian?
It's based
Something
on
like that.
Experian. Either way, it was a big fintech company. So that was quite interesting, was just seeing how the businesses, because they had like such amazing experts in kind of building businesses, were kind of working. And then in Manchester we had a few like very early stage startups kind of coming with us, and we did like a little competition. So we gave like a bit of a kind of a startup fund, and I gave them access to like loads of different like resources, like access to like HR and marketing and things like that. And it was about building a community around that as well. So we put events on, and we had like a little cafe there. And I suppose that's when I really started to realize how much I love talking to people. Building relationships, that is like absolutely where I thrive. So the selling side of things, which is ultimately part of the job, you've got to sell the desk space, not so driven by. I'm not somebody that's like, because I know some people are like, want to hit these targets, or they want to get their commission or whatever else, and I'm just like, no, I just like having conversations with people and talking. And it's difficult, because at that time, WeWork was starting to get a lot bigger in Manchester, and so the other much bigger office spaces could offer a lot more than what we could. And I was just like, I'm not driven by it. So one of our customers, so one of the people in the space, was a kind of a new charity. and they'd also been incubated out of a slightly bigger charity. But the organisation was looking for a programme manager for Greater Manchester. And I've always been interested in being able to make a change and have a positive impact. And it's a youth organisation, so running a youth mentoring programme. And so when I saw they were advertising for this role, I applied.
Yeah, that's
Kind of made that
me.
sideways switch.
Yeah,
And so it was a bit of an awkwardness of I've now gone from, managing the space, and I'm now actually one of the customers in the space.
yeah,
But everyone
Yeah.
was very, very lovely and very supportive. I also actually, just from that co-working space, because that was the first time that I had a woman as a boss. And she is just absolutely one of my like massive inspirations. Her name's Claire Dunn. And I just, I think if I ever try and emulate somebody, it's kind of like how Claire was with me in managing me and kind of just bringing me on and really supporting me, because previously I'd only ever been like managed by men, and it's different. It's
yes,
really, really different. So having like this incredibly like smart, like compassionate woman, like that was like working with me, yeah, it was a huge inspiration. And I was lucky again that in the actually all my jobs since have all been some amazing women managing me, working with me. So coming into the youth organisation, so called 1 Million Mentors, and it was a really simple concept of working with young people aged 14 to 25 and offering 1 hour once a month for up to a year. So it was about building that one-on-one relationship, and I again really, really thrived on that because we were recruiting the mentors, so those adults that were going to come along and kind of spend that time working with the young people, and then working with different youth partners. So that might be a school. We worked with like, youth centres, up to universities, like all sorts of different places. And that's for me coming back to the how, so for me, it's about raising awareness of it's okay to get things wrong. It's okay to change your career. You don't have to have it all mapped out, because that messaging just doesn't get out there enough. I think there's
no,
too much where it's all been, especially now, I think on social media, I think it's, everybody thinks that you've got to be immediately successful. And that's how it also works. You start doing something and suddenly you're successful, and it's not like that. It is a lot of making mistakes and learning along the way, and you learn more from your failures than you do your successes.
I
Yeah.
think it's interesting. Like being older and my background, I've run a lot of like done a lot of recruitment and run a lot and taken a lot of people on. Is the frustration as an employer as well is that people come in and they want to be here and they haven't learned here. So it's like there's a real, I don't know where it comes from, whether it's social media is some of it or where it comes from, but there's nothing about earning your stripes. Like don't want to do the admin, don't want to do those sorts of things. There's this whole bit about I've got to be here, which I think is like really dangerous,
Yeah.
because you've got to have experience. So I
Well,
think,
and you're just going to end up let down one way
yeah,
or another, aren't you?
yeah, we did it. We don't do it so much now, do we, El? But we've done a lot of work over the years with mentoring young children on employability and well-being. And I think that maybe you didn't as much, El, because you were traveling the world, weren't
I
you?
think I did a couple of things, but I
I was
don't
going to
think
say,
I'd
I keep
quite
thinking, yeah,
committed
you weren't
yet.
there.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of aspiration is driven out in the education system as well, or aspiration is built in the education system. I don't know whether you found that, but in the end, we had to come out of it. It was just disheartening.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, okay,
It's a really tough space.
such a tough space, isn't it?
Yeah, and I see a lot of parallels from like the young people that we used to work with to the veterans
Do
that
you?
I work with now.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
yeah, so I did 3 years with kind of the youth mentoring program, and then made the switch, and I had no idea that there was like a whole armed forces community like as a community, there's a label for it.
Yeah.
And then the fact that there is actually like a whole series of organizations that do amazing work, and there's loads of different projects and activities going on, because I think we know about the Royal British Legion because we see them every year for the poppy peel, and there's a couple of the other big ones. So SAFA is another one. I always get the soldier, sailor, airman, something association. It's really bad, I probably should know. Yeah. But they're like probably the two major ones. But there's literally like hundreds and thousands of like other smaller groups that are doing so much amazing work, and the opportunity then to kind of come into the sector and be like, oh, okay, actually this is really meaningful to me and to my family and to who I am. It was an amazing opportunity, and obviously started working with Laura, who again, another incredible woman to be inspired by and to work alongside. And yeah, because we work with all members of the armed force community, so that is whether you are currently serving, previously served in the UK armed forces, and importantly, it's also about the family members. So we could be seeing people with all sorts of different issues at different ages and different points in their lives. And I think just the kind of the parallels there with the young people, it's like you mentioned earlier about being kind of pigeonholed into like a certain stereotype. And we see that a lot, particularly I think with those that have been in the infantry. They are kind of then pushed into close protection jobs. You're pushed into logistics, so normally HGV drivers, and or PT, so going into like physical like training and like instruction. And there's just very little effort to talk about the whole range of different jobs that are out there, and that I think they're starting to do it a little bit more now. But for those that left, like 5, 10 plus years ago, they're not going to see that benefit from them. And we do see people that kind of like bounce around, and a real lack of like confidence in their own skills.
From an employer point of view, I also think that, and this isn't a criticism because things have changed, people aren't prepared for the workplace culture, which in many things is bonkers.
Yeah.
Like it's not structured. People don't respect a lot of people, all of the, and they what they do is they help people with, oh, they're your skills, that's what you should do, but don't really help them transition into the culture. And it's not fair. It's because really, can you imagine?
I mean, like, I genuinely can't imagine what it's like to go from such a structured life where you are like the whole point of being there is you are there to follow orders, and then someone goes, off you go, work your own life out now. How difficult that must be to even try and work out what you want to do. I can't imagine it.
And be interesting to see what you say, but because ours is my perception from the other side. But I think the solutions people put in place to help people transition to it need to be redefined. I'm trying to be really polite.
it's a big piece of work for sure.
So what do you do now then, Lisa? What's your role in all of this, like changing the world? Because come on, hurry up.
I'm trying, I really am. So the last couple of years, particularly, I've been working on a big project, which is part of a national programme where we are trying to bring together cross-sector partners and to improve the collaboration and the pathways of support for individuals. So there was a programme, it was originally called the Veterans, Places, Pathways and People Programme, or VPPP. And then we've changed the name now to, well, we didn't. Yeah, so it's Thrive Together, which is, there's a lot of different like Thrives and Together out there. And I think whenever you try to pick a program name, but ultimately it's based on, there's 10 portfolios. So 3 of the devolved nations and then 7 across England. And so we've been leading for the Northwest. So the Northwest encompasses Cheshire, Merseyside, Greater Manchester, Lancashire, and South Cumbria gets kind of split in the middle, but we just kind of class it as Cumbria. It's mapped against like the NHS boundaries. So it doesn't really make sense to people on the ground, does it? So the whole point of the kind of the the programme is, like I said, to look at those pathways of support for individuals so that they can get the help that they need when they need it, and trying to bring, this like no wrong front door approach, because there are lots of different services that are out there and lots of different like themes and needs that people will have. But not everybody knows or understands about the armed forces community and about the differences and kind of the challenges that can be faced, and what the Armed Forces Covenant means. So back in 2010, the Armed Forces Covenant was kind of brought in, and that's seen as the promise by the nation to ensure that no disadvantage is faced by those that have served or their families, or in special cases that additional consideration or special consideration could be made, i.e. the example there being like if somebody has lost a limb due to their service. But the application of the Armed Forces Covenant, I think, especially in a world where we're so kind of bombarded by like other media, it's not like in America where it's very much like thank you for your service, and it's a different kind of mentality. I think they have over there.
Yeah,
really different. Here it's like it's really focused on actually has your life been impacted in a negative way, or certainly have you experienced things differently because you have served or your family members have served, and some of that is like some real simple things, like so if you've joined at 16 and then I don't know you've been in for 20 plus years, you have never had to register for council tax, you've never had to register for a GP yourself, you don't understand how these systems work because it's kind of always been done for you. And I think also sometimes the word veteran can be quite problematic because I think some people will associate that with World War II veterans or older, so it's very much of that time, and a veteran's only somebody that's of a certain age. It also, I think, will always then be men that people will think about. And also sometimes they will then say think it's only people that have seen like active like combat roles.
Yeah, that was my misconception of it years ago. It was active combat stuff, and that's just outrageous that's what you think it is, but you do.
Yeah. And that's just the impressions that are out there. And I think sometimes in the media, veterans can be used positively, negatively. It's really difficult, and I have to start right at the beginning. We're all unique. We've all got yes, we're part of this community, but we've all got our own different lived experiences and kind of things that we've what the challenges may be. And so the project that we're working on, we've kind of brought together a network of these organisations. So we're working with like statutory services, so like the local authorities, the NHS, working across to like the not-for-profit sector, so any of the other charities, CICs, etc. And just trying to raise awareness. So this network we've called the Forces Wellbeing Collective.
That's great.
And I'm so excited about the opportunities that we have here. Particularly because traditionally the armed forces sector has really operated in a bit of a silo. So kind of you might have a group that meets and they do their own thing, and they do some great work for those people that they support, but they're not really connected into anything else. And also, if somebody doesn't know about them, then how are you going to get that message out there? And we have to try and like reach out there. So, on average, I think it's about 5% of the population are veterans. And then when you add in family members, you're probably looking at least 10% of the population, of the general population.
It's a much bigger number than I would have thought it would be anyway.
Yeah. And because it's so varied of kind of what people have done after their service, and also I think we're only ever going to see an increase certainly of the number of reservists. So those that are what was called territorial army, but it's now like all known as the reserve forces, because the kind of the standing army or the standing military, those that are kind of in regular service, the numbers are kind of dwindling, I think, due to budgets, and recruitment's a big issue at the minute. So reserves are going to be called on more and more. And when we think into the future as to what's going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years, it is likely to be more that it's going to be reservists that are called up. And also, when you leave the military, you have a certain number of years that you are on reserve call duty as well. So you can be called back up even if you've
right,
left,
okay.
which not a lot of people know about.
No?
So yeah, a lot of these things kind of impacts. And so the other thing I think that happens as well is when people think of, say, if it's talking about mental health issues or any like homelessness, etc., and the word veteran, there's like a just an instant thing I think that jumps into people's heads, particularly I think after like Iraq and Afghanistan, that's what's caused those issues.
Yeah.
But actually, for a lot of people, it was issues that they had before they joined the military that they've never been able to kind of process and deal with. So a lot of people that we support, it's a lot of unresolved childhood trauma that they've kind of been through, you know, the reasons that they join in the first place to kind of escape the places that they've come from, and then they're being kind of chucked back into that when they've come out and they've not known how to deal with it. And I think a big thing that's coming up and something I'm quite passionate about is there are more and more veterans that are being late diagnosed with autism and ADHD. So recognizing there is this,
that makes so much sense.
Yeah, when you just start to think about it, you go, well, yeah, you've been in a role that is very structured, that still gives you
very processed,
like kind of like purpose, and kind of your autonomy there. And also knowing that kind of like neurodiversity tends to be genetic. So there's also a lot of families that will go and serve. Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
And then you throw them into the world.
Exactly.
That isn't geared up for neurodivergency. Well, I got my teeth all in a pickle with that.
Absolutely.
So what do you see, coming back to you, what do you see as a grown-up military child, what do you see your role in this? What difference do you want to make? Because it's a huge topic, this, isn't it?
It is. So yeah, I really want to look at kind of like policies and strategies and kind of like what is going to be a lasting change and a lasting impact. And I'm really lucky that I've been involved in some work in Greater Manchester. So there is a kind of a strategic group of us from different organisations that have worked with the Combined Authority and worked with the other local authorities to produce it's the Greater Manchester Armed Forces Roadmap. And so this is an initial 5-year kind of plan, but it's a rolling plan, so that, you know, every year we will kind of come back and review that and see whether this is still kind of meeting the aims that we want to achieve, which is ultimately to make Greater Manchester the best place for veterans and their families to live. And then I want to say, well, we've done this work here in Greater Manchester, let's take that to other places and get that implemented as well. And that's when you start to realise that it's very complex, particularly when you're looking at the NHS. It's so complex, and all public services are kind of having their budgets cut. But what I really want to try and encourage is people to work collaboratively, in kind of in true collaboration and genuinely in partnership, and because that's the lasting impact that we need to see, so that we can try and stop some of the revolving doors that we see for people's issues. Because if you just treat like a symptom or, you know, a short-term fix, it's more likely that someone's going to come back with, you know, the same issues again, or you just not got to that root cause. So looking at how the policies and the strategies that are kind of being rolled out, because it's got to sit with the public bodies ultimately, because that's what they're responsible for. So yeah, that's the change, the big impact.
Just a tiny change then.
Just a tiny one.
I think it's really awesome, and I think if you thought about how big this was, you wouldn't even step into the space, would you?
No,
you know, so
exactly.
I think it's admirable. Like, I think it's really interesting what you're doing. We've just started to get involved in that because of Debs. And as Ellie said earlier, it just starts to open your eyes about a whole different narrative, a whole different story, a whole different challenge for people. So, yeah, I found that really, really, really interesting, and could talk about it forever. But we have been on for an hour. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, and it has, I think it's, for me, it's been a really refreshing conversation, because it's not, like, your story isn't really a story that you hear all the time, and it's just been really refreshing.
Really,
so thank
really
you very
lovely.
much for
thank you.
for sharing it with us. And last and final question for you. If you had to choose a song that was the theme song for your life, what would it be?
So I would choose Warning by Incubus.
I don't think I know
that
it.
one. You're gonna have to sing it.
No, oh, don't ask me to sing it.
Was it
Terrible
in
voice.
your friend's flat whilst you were organising your secret parties?
Yeah, with Lucia. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Eleanor's not getting over that.
I know, I'm not.
Well, it's incredible. No, there's a theme in the song basically about basically to kind of see life, and there's a line along the lines of like, don't let anything kind of pass you by. So I think it's something, when I heard it when I was younger, I've been a fan of Incubus since I was like a teenager, that's always really, really stuck with me, of just being able to seize life and enjoy it.
I think that's really come across throughout your whole, like, everything that you've said as well, is you have really purposefully, like, chosen to do what you wanted to do. And I don't think a lot of people do that. And I think that you should, like, I was going to say you should be really proud of yourself, but I didn't know if that was really patronising, because, like, well done, Lisa. Like, I really didn't mean it in a patronising way. I really
it's nice to reflect on that. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think that I don't know how we get you to show that to people, but I 100% agree, Ellie, that without you taking it as a great, like, I'm going to be purposeful about my life, because like, you have been purposeful about your life, and I just think that's pretty impressive. And I think it'd be amazing to watch what you do going forward. But it really struck me as well, Ellie, because sometimes you can overthink purpose. I don't know how you've done it, and we need to get you on again. But you definitely
because I know what you mean, because
do you know what I mean?
At no point has it come across that you have overthought purpose, and that you've gone like, right,
gone
okay,
to
I'm gonna
retreat or worked with a coach, or like
So I don't know. We'll have to work it out.
Round 2.
or you can come and do some of the workshops. Yeah, there we go. It's really, I really agree with you, Ali. It's been because we don't know you at all as well. It's like, it's really good to talk to somebody that you have no conceptions about, or preconceptions.
Definitely.
So, I find it really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing everything and listening to our inane conversation.
Yeah, I love it. That's been
great. And PCOS, but PCOS is another workshop, isn't it? So
I absolutely. One of my things I recently, it was the audiobook I listened to, but Menopausing by Davina McCall, and I'm just like, I think every woman needs to read, everybody needs to read it, because
I think we should put PCOS on one of our things, actually thinking about it. So I'm going to write that down when you've gone off.
Crazy.
Crazy.
It's big impact. So thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
No, thank you honestly,
so much.
Thank
you, Lisa. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. It's been, like I said, really refreshing. Really loved having the conversation with you, and thank you to everyone for listening. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.